1. The story about the elder nun Mahapajapati Gotami. Etadagan bhikkhave mamasavikanan bhikkhuninan ratanyunan yadidan Mahapajapati Gotami. This is the foremost of my nun disciples, monastics, amongst those who are senior, that is to say, Mahapajapati Gotami. The commentary or story. In the first of the texts concerning the elder nuns, that is to say, Mahapajapati Gotami, it shows how the elder nun Mahapajapati Gotami, amongst those who were senior, was said to be the foremost. This is the exposition concerning the inquiry into her previous deeds. Her aspiration and good deeds. At the time of the Buddha Padamutara, it seems, she was conceived in a good family home in Hamsawati. Then at another time, while listening to the teacher teach the Dhamma, she saw the teacher place a certain nun as being foremost in seniority, did a great deed, and aspired for the same position herself. She gave donations for the rest of her life and protected her virtue. Having passed away from there, she was reborn in the world of the gods and spent one period when there was no Buddha there. She passed away again from the world of the gods, was reborn, and became the chief amongst 500 female slaves in Varanasi. Then, as the time for the rains retreat was approaching, 5 independent Buddhas descended from Mount Nandamulika to Isipatana. They wandered for alms in the city, and after going back to Isipatana, they thought, "We will ask for manual labor in order to prepare the huts for spending the rains." After wrapping their robes, they entered the city in the evening time and stood at the gate of the treasurer's house. The chief female slave took a water pot and while going to the reservoir saw the independent Buddhas entering the city. The treasurer, after hearing why they had come, said, "You do not have our permission. Please go." Then, as they were leaving the city, the chief female slave took her water pot, and while entering she saw them, put down the water pot, worshipped, bent down, lifted up her face and asked, "Noble ones, having just entered the city, why are you now leaving?" "We came to ask for manual labor to prepare the huts for spending the rains." "Did you receive it, reverend sirs?" "We did not receive it, laywoman." "But can these huts only be made by the powerful, or is it possible also for the lowly to build them?" "It is possible for anyone to build them." "Very well, reverend sirs, we will build them. Tomorrow please accept our alms food." After inviting them, she took the water pot, placed it on the road going to the reservoir, and every time the other female slaves came, she said, "Wait here." When everyone had assembled, she said, "Ladies, will we always be doing slave work for another, or do you wish to be free of this slavery?" "Noble lady, today itself we wish to be free." "If you so wish, as the 5 independent Buddhas didn't receive manual labor, they were invited by me for tomorrow. Have your husbands give manual labor for a day." They replied, "Very well," and informed their husbands when they returned from the forest. They also said, "Very well," and assembled at the chief male slave's door. Then the chief female slave said to them, "Tomorrow, dears, you must give manual labor to the independent Buddhas." She explained the advantages, and even those who did not desire to do it at first, after she had given them strong advice, they all agreed. On the next day, after giving food to the independent Buddhas, she gave a sign to all of the slaves. They entered the wilderness straight away and assembled the timber. Having gathered in hundreds and made each of them a hut together with a walking meditation path, they placed suitable beds, chairs and drinks and received a promise from the independent Buddhas to spend the 3 months right there. Then they prepared alms food for each of them in turn. For those who were not able to take the opportunity to give on their day, the chief female slave took food from her own house and gave it. After looking after them for 3 months, the chief female slave had each of the female slaves prepare cloth, and they made 500 coarse cloths. After exchanging them and having the 3 robes made, she gave a set of each to the 5 independent Buddhas. And even as they watched, the independent Buddhas went through the air to Mount Gandamardana. Another life, giving donations. After doing good deeds for the rest of their lives, they were reborn in the world of the gods. The chief female, having passed away from there, was reborn to the chief weaver in a weaver's village not far from Varanasi. Then one day, Padmawati's sons, the 500 independent Buddhas, were invited by the king of Varanasi. After going to the king's gate and not seeing anyone there, they turned back and left via the city gate and went to the weaver's village. Those women saw the independent Buddhas, treated them kindly, and after worshipping them all, they gave them alms food. After taking their food, they left for Gandamardana. Her last life. After doing good deeds for the rest of her life, she was reborn amongst gods and humans only. Later, she was reborn prior to our teacher, and was conceived in the house of Mahāsapa Buddha in the city of Devadaha, and was given the name Gotami, and was Mahamaya's younger sister. The Brahmanas, learned in the scriptures, examining the characteristics, declared, the children who dwell in these 2 wombs will become universal monarchs. The great king Suddhodana, when they had reached maturity, married the 2 of them and led them to his home. Later, after our Buddha-to-be had passed away from Tusita heaven, he took conception in the womb of Queen Mahamaya. Mahamaya died 7 days after the day she delivered him and was reborn in Tusita heaven. The great king Suddhodana placed the great being's mother's sister, Mahapajapati Gotami, in the position of chief consort. At that time, Prince Nanda was born. Mahapajapati gave Prince Nanda to a wet nurse and took care of the Buddha-to-be herself. On another occasion, the Buddha-to-be left on his great renunciation and attained omniscience. While working for the benefit of the world, he gradually reached the city of Kapilavatthu and went into the city for alms. Then his father, the great king Suddhodana, hearing a talk about Dhamma on the highway, became a stream enterer. Then on the 2nd day, Nanda went forth, and Rahula on the 7th day. On another occasion, the teacher was living in the vicinity of Vaisali in the gabled hall. At that time, the great king Suddhodana realized liberation under the white parasol and was completely emancipated. Then the thought of ordination occurred to Mahapajapati. After leaving the bank of the river Rohini, at the conclusion of the discourse on quarrels and disputes, all the wives of the 500 young men who had gone forth had but one thought: After going into Mahapajapati's presence, all of us will go forth in the presence of the teacher. Making Mahapajapati their chief and going into the presence of the teacher, they expressed their desire to go forth. The first time Mahapajapati requested the going forth from the teacher, it was not granted. Therefore she summoned the barber, had her hair removed, donned the yellow robes, took all the Sakyan women and went to Vaisali. There the elder Ānanda made the request to the one of 10 powers, and she received the going forth and the higher ordination with the 8 serious rules. All the others also received their higher ordination together. This is told in brief here, but the elaboration comes from the story in the text. Then, after her higher ordination, Mahapajapati, after approaching the teacher and worshipping him, stood on one side, and the teacher taught the Dhamma to her. After taking a meditation subject in the presence of the teacher, she attained liberation. All 500 nuns, at the conclusion of the discourse of Nandika's advice, also attained liberation. This is the story of what happened. Later, when the teacher was sitting in Jeta's wood, when placing the nuns in their different positions, he placed Mahapajapati as the foremost amongst those who were senior.